An ACC championship that could determine whether or not that a team from the ACC even gets into the college football playoff. That is the conversation that is being held a lot now recently. Welcome along, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Southern Sports Team. I am your host, as always, Lucas Hill. Make sure you follow me on X at Lucas Hill SEC. Make sure you hit the like, share, and subscribe down below. Savanah Tujague, ACC Insider, joining us as always. Savanah, heck of a season for the ACC. Nobody expected Virginia and Duke to be in this position, but good to see you again. Hope all is well down in Florida.
Yeah, so happy to be here. There's one thing about the ACC that will always be true. It used to be coastal chaos, and then we got rid of divisions, and the coastal chaos just expanded to the entirety of the ACC, coast to coast, might I add. Yeah, it's always something in the ACC for sure.
It always. I mean, the build-up to this game is just incredible to me because we talked off air and we talked about, okay, this is a team that in Virginia, I was talking in the preseason about how Tony Elliott is very likely going to get fired at the end of this year. And Virginia is going to be in a position to potentially either go get a guy from the SEC. I said probably Glenn Schumann could be a very likely candidate, even though he's been in SEC country most of the time. Wouldn't surprise me if they go grab another guy like that. And then all of a sudden, Virginia gets a signature win at the beginning of the season against a then top 10 Florida State. We didn't expect for Florida State to be just barely making a bowl game when it is all said and done. But here we are. Now you get a rematch with Duke, who you just played a couple weeks ago. And Duke had to pray to God for chaos to ensue, sitting at 5-5 on the season, scraping for a bowl game. You get a much-needed win against North Carolina, and then chaos ensues. And now you're in a position to potentially be in contention for a college football playoff. Talk to me about both these teams. We know about the backstory of both coaches. What are we going to expect this weekend?
Yeah, I think to start it off, it would be so typical of the ACC for it to come down to the game of two bottom dwellers in Boston College and Syracuse to decide who goes to the ACC championship, which ended up being Duke. Before I get into that, one other thing, a lot of people have gripes with the tiebreakers in the ACC, but these are the tiebreakers across all Power 4 conferences. This is not exclusive to the ACC. Everybody has these same tiebreakers. And so it is what it is. No one thought it would come to this. Getting into each team, I am a firm believer in that it's very hard to be the same team twice in the same season. It just is kind of doesn't happen too often. It's happened a couple times in the past few years since the 12-team expansion, but it is just interesting to have this matchup again and expect a different outcome. I think that UVA has a chance to win. But I wouldn't count out Manny Diaz and his defense. Poetic justice, of course, Manny Diaz gets to an ACC championship before Mario Cristobal does at Miami, the school that fired him for going 7-5. Just funny how that plays out. Truthfully, let's start with UVA. Chandler Morris, awesome kid, had a breakout season. He's really done it all. The O-line for the for UVA, I don't know if they had a single player on the O-line receive any honorable mentions. First team, second team, nothing for the ACC. Not saying that they didn't deserve it or did or whatever, but not the strong portion of the team. I think it's really relied on Chandler Morris and his ability to pass the ball and scramble. On the defensive side of the ball, they obviously lost Cam Robinson due to a season-ending injury, which is a huge blow. But I do think that the UVA defense is absolutely capable of still shutting down Darian Mensah and the Duke offense, because the Duke team has obviously, Manny Diaz as a defensive coach, has had better defenses than they have had offenses. And their offense has been very inconsistent throughout the season. I would like for this to be a closer game. I expect it to be a closer game. Neutral site. Charlotte is not really far or close from either of these schools. I would expect the stands to be about 50-50. I mean, probably more UVA fans just simply based off of student body and alumni. But yeah, I expect it to be a lot closer outcome than it was the first go round.
I think when you talk about a guy like Darian Benson, what he's done this year, I mean, he's been a very efficient quarterback at times. But like you mentioned, the offense has just kind of felt like a stalemate at times. You haven't been able to really sustain drives at times. You've seen a lot of mistakes that have gone his way. I mean, when you look at the 5 games that Duke has lost, it just felt like they've had a lapse. The last during in this, especially in the second half of some of these games. The second loss to Tulane, I thought that you got out coached and you got out schemed in the second half. I thought you had chances to win that game when it was all said and done, and then you just pissed down your leg. You refused to adjust at halftime, and you kind of shot yourself in the foot a lot against a good team like Georgia Tech, where you go into the fourth quarter tied at 10, and then Georgia Tech proceeds to rattle off 17 unanswered. You put yourself in the hole because you lose the turnover battle in those instances too. So I think if you're Duke, you got to be able to create turnovers in this football game. You mentioned it already. Chandler Morris, what a story that he has been, a guy that was kind of castricized among college football quarterbacks, a 6th-year guy, and obviously not going to go very much in the NFL draft, but loses his starting job at TCU, ends up transferring to Texas, has a hell of a year there, transfers to Virginia in this Tony Elliott offense, and Tony Elliott finally has his guy. And if it isn't for a guy like Chandler Morris, and even I would even say guys like Jamari Taylor, there's a very likely chance that we're not seeing Tony Elliott as the head coach out in for the University of Virginia at this point in time. What do you have to say about a guy like Jamari Taylor coming in from North Carolina Central in the season that he's had? 1,000-yard guy, 14 touchdowns on the season, seen the best and sometimes even the worst of him at times, seen him kind of get limited in some games as a whole, but this is a guy that's kind of the complete package at running back when he's on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I obviously am a big offensive side of the ball girl. So seeing 1,000-yard rusher at any university is something I'm going to love every single time. Like I said, I don't know that UVA has had the best offensive line comparatively to the ACC this year. And again, that's not to shade them. That's just to simply put how much more impressionable it is that Chandler Morris and Jamari Taylor have been able to do. It is incredible. And like you said, there has been instances where it hasn't been it's been inconsistent. A great example, quite frankly, is the NC State game. For NC State, who has a defense that's not ranked very highly, they sure did shut down Jamari Taylor. And obviously he did some good stuff. He had some this, he had some that, he had some of the other, but there's definitely been games where he has been shut down, and those are the games that they have lost or come close. He was also shut down against Washington State, which is a game that UVA barely came away with the win. He was also shut down at UNC, which again, another game where UVA barely got away with the win. And I'm again, no shade. Great teams find a way to win, and that's exactly what they've done. But putting it on the backs of Jamari Taylor and Chandler Morris has definitely been the go-to scheme for the Cavalier Wahoo offense.
And for kind of a preface for those of you that don't know, Savanah's father, Garrett Tujague, is the run game coordinator. Is he also O-line coach at NC State too?
Yeah, he is. And prior to that, he coached at the University of Virginia for a very long time.
So he has a lot of Tony Elliott ties then. So
yeah,
that's a heck of a history there. Are you going to be in Charlotte for the game?
Working on it. We shall see. I'm supposed to be just, got a lot going on. I'm hopeful that I'll get up there though.
Well, they rejected my media credential request for the American Championship game, so we won't be going to that.
Really?
I mean, I got the email too from the Tulane's SID. They said it is very tight too, surprisingly. But I mean, in a high-profile game like this, I'm not really surprised either. I didn't expect it to get approved either. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is when it's all said and done. But I thought this was overall. I thought this is a Duke offense that is really coming to its own the last 2 games. I know you're playing North Carolina, and I know you're playing Wake Forest, but these are the 2 games where I thought that Darian Benson really played his best. Both of them both games averaging over 65% completion percentage. Didn't get sacked a whole lot. That's kind of been a problem for Duke throughout most of the season, is that he's taken a lot of hits in several games. I mean, when you talk about what North Carolina State did, Syracuse, teams like Georgia Tech that is very stingy on the defensive side of the ball, all of which he struggled with at times during the season. Do you see any kind of something like that from this Virginia defense?
I don't want
to sack them 4 times.
Yes, I'll say this. Missing Cam Robinson is a huge piece of that Virginia defense that is desperately going to be missed. Not just for his ability to like actually make plays, but part of that stems from his experience in the game. He's a 6-year senior. He knows how the plays are developing. He's smart. He can see it happen on the field simply because of experience. Do I think that will happen again this game? No, I think that the UVA offense is good, and I actually really love Coach Rudinsky, who is the defensive coordinator at UVA. I think he's done a phenomenal job. He was previously at Army. He is very good at doing more with less. And not to say that UVA has less, I just mean it comparatively to schools like Texas Tech, for example, right? He's obviously doing more with less than schools like that. But I think that Manny Diaz will specifically game plan to make sure that that piece of this doesn't happen again this week. Like you mentioned in their last 2 games of the season, yes, UNC is bottom of the barrel ACC, but Wake is a good football team. They really got screwed against Georgia Tech. Their defense has been great. They have one of the best rushers in the ACC. And so to put up that many points against Wake Forest, who again, like I said, is honestly a good team, better than their record shows. They look good, better than all the things are showing. I think if they can put together the type of offensive performance that they did against Wake Forest, it absolutely gives them a chance at beating UVA this time. It's unfortunate that UVA and Duke don't have Wake as a common opponent, because the rest of their common opponents really are very, very split, right? One of them beat UNC. One of them kept it really close with UNC. One lost to NC State. One beat NC State. One lost to Georgia Tech. One beat Georgia Tech. So a lot of them are split. I would really have liked to have seen how University of Virginia could have done against Wake, and that would have been a huge deciding factor. I do, at the very least, I'm going to be honest, I do think the University of Virginia wins. But I think that Duke keeps it much closer this time. Duke also has nothing to lose. They're 7-5, and in the ACC championship, guns a-blazing. Who cares? Throw it all out there. I expect to see quite a few trick plays or like mismatch schemes that they don't normally run in this game as well.
You know, I talked to Coach Manny Diaz at the Senior Bowl. I enjoyed really getting to talk with him, just getting him to know him kind of on a personal level. We had a great conversation, me and him. I really like what he's done with this defense, and I really like the way that he coaches. I thought he was unfairly fired at Miami.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying they win this football game, but here's what I'm at with this one. They're going to throw a lot of wrinkles on it. I thought that Duke has looked great at times in the back 7. I thought that defensively they have had their moments, but they're also one of the worst teams in pass defense. They're going to have to stack the box against this Virginia rushing attack. I don't expect for Chandler Morris to kind of take shots down the field, but when he has those opportunities, when they're in one-on-one coverage, he's going to take advantage of them. I mean, you have to against a team like this. So I don't know what's going to happen with this one, but let's get ready for a doomsday scenario. Duke wins this football game. Do they deserve to be in the college football playoff?
I feel like there's a world in my mind that believes that the winner of the ACC deserves a spot in the college football playoff. The problem is, and if you don't know yet and haven't seen their released rankings tonight, they kept Miami out of the top 10.
Yes.
And again, kept Miami out of the top 10 is one thing. Kept Miami out of the top 10 and left Notre Dame in the top 10 is the issue. And so if there's a world where no teams from the ACC get in because Duke wins this game, all that says to me is that there's a problem with the establishment, because maybe the ACC is just that competitive of a conference. And I know people love to laugh at that, but the ACC did poorly against the Big 12 this year. They didn't do poorly against other conferences. They didn't do poorly against the SEC. We went 4-5 against the SEC, or 5-6. I can't remember. I might be wrong. I think it's 5-6 because Florida State and Miami play Florida. And one of those was a respectable loss, Georgia Tech to Georgia. So I can't even be mad at that, really. And so when you start letting complete conferences out of the college football playoff, I think that that's where the issue lies. And I think a lot of people too have learned this year, and now I'm on a soapbox about it, so you can cut me off at any time. But I think people have learned also this year that like these super mega conferences aren't good. The teams that are in the ACC championship didn't have to play the top ACC teams. Most of them played 2 of 6. And so, or they both only played 2 of 6. And so it begs the question, like, what about teams like Miami and even NC State, who played the top 6 teams in the ACC this year? You know what I mean? I don't know. I think it's very, very problematic if because Duke wins this game, the ACC is left out of the college football playoff.
So here's where I'm at with this one. If Duke manages to win the college football playoff, I think Miami should get it, realistically. I also think if Miami does get in, there's a scenario where you could see 1, maybe 2 G5 schools that get in. Now, I'm sure that Vanderbilt is going to say something about that. Utah is going to say something about that.
BYU
is going to say something about that. Here's the problem, though. This year has gotten crazy for all the wrong reasons. Last year was because there's 3 3-loss teams compared to a team like SMU or a team like Boise State that thought, that's one scenario. This year just got crazier. And this all stems back to the fact that we expanded to 12 instead of going to just 8. 8 was the magic number we should have
Yes.
We should have never gone past that number. I say this, too. There's also a scenario where Miami gets left out, where Texas jumps ahead of Miami, which I don't think Texas belongs in. And I'm an SEC guy.
No, and they shouldn't, because, again, against common opponents, Miami has the edge.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, Miami beat Notre Dame, but they're looking at, okay, what are they doing now? Which I think is ridiculous because if we're being honest with you, Notre Dame is not the same team that they were last year. I get that they have a Heisman Trophy winning or contender in Jeremiah Lovett, running back. I know that their offense has gotten much better significantly since the early part of September. But realistically, their schedule is god-awful. They don't have a very good win this year. You can say, oh, well, USC was a great win. Well, USC, can I really even consider USC to be a dominant team this year? Yeah. You beat a Michigan team that at home that really is still struggling with their offensive side of the ball. Iowa has no offense. Nebraska struggled on the offensive side of the ball. And by the way, if Dylan Raiola is healthy, they lose at Nebraska. So even then, I just have a hard time seeing a team like Notre Dame just getting into a college football playoff and making a deep run this year. And as soon as we're getting done with the first round, I'm just ready for what Twitter is going to explode and what it's going to look like. Oh, this should have happened. Oh, this should have happened. All these burner accounts that I'm ready to see. Oh, we should have gotten in. And just like Lane did last year. I'm just ready for that because I'm expecting it. And at this point, I'm not surprised. I've been doing this for 2 years. You've got a little bit more experience than me, but I'm just preparing myself to bookmark some of these tweets and laugh at them when it is all said and done.
Yeah, I think my final thought about the college football playoff and what it is best summed up by this tweet that I saw. Someone replied to me and it said, if you have to make your case to get in, that's not a playoff, that's an invitational. And that's exactly what this is that it's turned into I'm going to plead my case to get in. The committee has clearly stated out their guidelines of what they follow and then actively pick and choose which ones to follow for which team, depending on what serves their purpose, which is TV revenue. And I agree. I don't think that Notre Dame is that good of a team. And I need to do more research on this topic, but I think that there needs to be a world that exists where the ACC stops helping them out and doesn't schedule any games with them and doesn't do anything with them. And so that they're off to having to play Bowling Green, and then they have no chance at getting in because will have really played nobody. I don't see a world where 2 group of 5s get in. Again, I think it's deeply problematic if you leave out a power conference. The same way I thought it was deeply problematic in 2023 when Florida State was left out. It's deeply problematic. And everyone's like, it was a different team. Okay, then Ole Miss shouldn't be in because they're a completely different team without their entire offensive staff.
I agree. I mean, you got to have some consistency with it, but this is a college football playoff we're talking about. We're never going to have that. Total line for this one, Virginia, 2.5-point favorite. I think Virginia barely covers in this one. I think it's a different game. I think Duke is able to adjust. I think Darian Mensah has a much better game than what he did against Duke. I think Chandler Morris is fully 100% after getting hurt in that first game against Duke.
Yeah.
I think this ends up being another kind of a shootout. I think whatever the over-under is, I'm taking the over in this one. I expect this to be kind of give me a 34-30 type of game. I think Virginia, though, still covers.
Yeah, I agree. I think Virginia covers, but barely. I do agree with you on that. I think this is a much closer game, and I would expect a similar score. I'm thinking like 30-28, 34-30 type thing.
Going to be a good one out there in Charlotte, North Carolina. Savanah Tujague joining us once again, ACC Insider. Want to thank our good friends really fast before we end off the show. 2, our good friends over at Frost Buddy. Use the code SSS15 to get yourself 15% off on all things mugs. They got nice tumbler cups. Savanah, you want a tumbler cup for Christmas? Go ahead and go click the link down below. Get yourself 15% off of that one. Also, going over to our friends over at Chike Nutrition. Coffee is expensive. It's ridiculously expensive, but you're going over to Chike Nutrition, get the best available coffee that they have on the market. 20 grams of protein, 1 gram of fat, 1 gram of sugar. Use the link in the description below to get 10% off of your first purchase. Savanah, again, appreciate you talking with us. We will see you later, and hopefully we get to see you out in North Carolina.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.